Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Frosto. I'm with Inspire Sheboygan County, which we are part of the Inspire Wisconsin Network. And I'm excited to be here today with Sarah Fitano, who is a genetic counseling student at the Medical College of Wisconsin. Before Sarah starts talking, I just want to find out and make sure that it's working. I want to have everybody type in the chat box where you are from. So if you could go ahead and if you can, if you're a classroom, maybe somebody can go up to the front and do it. Just click on the chat box and type in where you are from. And it looks like we have Nina and Oosberg so far. Oosberg, wonderful. A couple of Oosbergs, great. All right, so we do reach students across the entire state of Wisconsin. So it's good to have you join us. Milwaukee, wonderful. Thank you. And so Milwaukee Medical College of Wisconsin, that's right near you, probably somewhere. Well, good. All right, so we are going to be using the chat box this morning. Just wanted to make sure you're all familiar with using it. And we do have you muted and your audio is turned off just for the sake of our presentation as we are recording it this morning. We're going to be talking about many things with Sarah, but one of the skills I just wanted to bring up quickly is she is a genetic counseling student. And so I think one of the best skills that's really being defined for her is time management. We always have to work on time management, even from probably middle school on. But when you're younger, your parents or your guardians kind of help you with that time management. And then as you age, you kind of need to figure it out yourself. So I know that's something that we do the rest of our lives. So the more you can practice it, the better it will become for you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sarah because she has a great presentation and you would rather hear from her than me. So Sarah, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. Okay, so kind of get us started. This is just a brief overview of genetic counseling and kind of what it is. Like Julie had said, I am a first year master's student of genetic counseling at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And I'm sure quite a few of you are wondering, well, what is genetic counseling? I personally haven't heard of it until I was a junior in college, but a genetic counselor is a trained healthcare professional that works in a medical genetics clinic. We act as advocates and educators for our patients and families that we see that may have or may even inherit a genetic condition along the line. Genetic counselors are really there to help patients and families navigate the world of genetics by offering education, supportive counseling, risk assessment for various conditions that might run in their family, and also help by interpreting genetic test results and what that means for them. There's a multitude of specialties that we're able to work in, such as prenatal. So, when a person is pregnant, in cancer, pediatrics, so working with kids in a laboratory setting, and even research, a genetic counselor really wants to provide support and education so their patients are able to make informed decisions about their healthcare. And that relates to their genetics. That's why you're seeing a genetic counselor, and your genetics is extremely unique and personal. So it takes quite a big skill set to make sure you're discussing that correctly. And then for specialty areas, the very first genetic counseling program was created in 1969 at the Sarah Lawrence College in New York. So during the 70s, all the way up through the 90s, prenatal genetic counseling was really the only main practice for genetic counselors to be in. And since those early days, it has grown exponentially. So now it includes specialty areas like neurogenetics and cardiology. More specialty just kind of means that there is a greater demand for genetic counselors. So over on the left side, we see here that there's currently about 5,600 genetic counselors today. And then the other image is just all of the additional specialty areas that we can work in. So just some stats about this field. It is expected to continue to grow by 29% through 2029. So meaning there is a fantastic outlook for this career, as well as that there's going to be a bunch of available jobs in the future. Becoming a certified genetic counselor is the norm, and that certification exam or the board's exam will occur once you graduate from a master's program in genetic counseling. Most genetic counseling students will have a job ready for them by the time they graduate, if not before. And overall, genetic counselors are very satisfied in their job. So, about 9 out of 10 current practicing genetic counselors report that they're satisfied with their job, which is kind of great because not all jobs you will see like that great amount of passion, which is also something that drew me to the field. The salary range for genetic counseling, and this kind of includes the entire US, it does range from 60,000 to over 200,000 a year. Those higher salaries, I will make a note, is kind of when you're working in industry. So you're working at a testing laboratory and you're able to do a little bit more than just in the clinical setting. And as a little note for brand new genetic counselors that start in Wisconsin, that salary is about 70,000. So something very nice to keep in mind. So genetics, people in healthcare, it is just a great cross section of being able to help people while never worrying about being bored. There's constantly new technology to sequence DNA, as well as new information about genetics, and the treatments to help people with genetic conditions is constantly changing and being incorporated into genetic clinics. So genetic counselors, we are the experts about genetics, inheritance, and how the changes in a person's DNA might affect them, as well as their health. We get to work with a great amount of different people. We work with medical doctors, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, as well as various other advanced practice providers. So kind of a little bit of background for DNA and your genome, which I'm sure you guys may have covered already in your biology courses, but our genome makes up our entire genetic information. And so our DNA is made up of 3 billion base pairs that create genes and proteins that have various functions in our bodies. There have been over 10,000 single gene disorders that have been described in medical literature, and we have been able to understand and link about 6,000 of those to specific genes. So we can understand how that change in the gene causes that specific disorder, which I think is quite interesting. And when we think about our DNA, we think genes and what we can see physically, making us our unique selves. But in reality, only 3% of our DNA actually codes for those genes that make those proteins. And there's about 97% of our DNA that is non-coding, which we know has a lot of regulatory roles, which like to help make the protein work, turn genes on and off. But there's also a lot of the function that's still unknown. And, humans do share about 99% of the same DNA, meaning it's that 1% difference between us that creates like an amazing amount of variation between us, such as your hair color, the texture, eye color, height, and even if you will have webbed toes or not, which is actually really more common than you might think. There is a huge spectrum of genetic conditions and disorders. Over on the left, we have Javier Lopez. He's actually a famous horror actor that has Marfan syndromes. So that is the cause of him being extremely tall, very thin, and he has those long spindly fingers. So makes it great for him while he's working in a horror set because he can create monsters just by using his body in an awesome mask. Down below, we have Lily Moore. She is an actress who has Down syndrome, and she actually plays in Never Have I Ever on Netflix. Up here, you see that they have 2 different colored eyes, and that's called heterochromia. Down here, we have Sam. Sam has progeria, which is actually a really rare condition that causes rapid aging and other issues. He does really good advocacy work, and he has a wonderful TED Talk about his condition and kind of how he deals with it. And then over here, we have Peter Dinklage, who is an actor from Game of Thrones, and he has achondroplasia, which is a type of skeletal dysplasia, or also known as dwarfism. So that's causing his shortened stature as well as shorter limbs. So there is a multitude of different spectrum that we can see physically from a body. Some are very mild, but there are others that can cause a ton of issues, and unfortunately, including death or early death. The range of symptoms can range along with that severity of the genetic condition. So it can be really difficult to learn that you or even a family member has a specific condition. And us genetic counselors are the ones here to help you learn about that genetic change and provide you support throughout your genetic journey. So why would someone come and see a genetic counselor? These are kind of the three bigger reasons that someone would come. Usually, it comes down to patients having a family history of a genetic condition, showing symptoms that affect their health, or there's people who want to start a family but know that there is a chance of passing down something to their children and they want to know what that risk is. Genetic counselors see all ages from while still in utero or prenatally to infants to children's, teens, and adults. There are conditions that have early onset, meaning that you will see symptoms at a really young age, such as many metabolic disorders, or which are disorders that affect how you metabolize food, to late onset disorders like Huntington's disease, which patients will start having symptoms in their 40s, where they have progressive neurologic issues that lead to death. The image on the right is a tool that genetic counselors use to determine risk, as well as see those patterns of inheritance in a family. So this is kind of called a pedigree. So these people in red will show them as affected. And then this person outlined is our client that we are trying to determine if they are at risk of inheriting this disorder that's running in their family. So, kind of how to become a genetic counselor. So, to start with, having exposure to genetic counseling is a fantastic start. Shadowing genetic counselors or even having a video chat, because COVID is still a thing, is really fantastic and really easy to set up. Many programs will want you to have some sort of volunteer advocacy work, either with working with people with disabilities or people facing various crises. There's also internships, but those are actually usually offered to those in college. So kind of look around once you get there. And then speaking of college, you will need to have some sort of bachelor's degree. Most applicants do have their bachelor's in biology or psychology, but there's actually no degree restriction. I do know of a genetic counselor who is practicing, and she got her undergrad in theater and dance, and she is absolutely fantastic. So if you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to go so hard on the science, that's definitely okay. There's just prerequisites that you will need to meet, like biology and genetics, obviously, as well as biochemistry. So each program kind of varies in their requirements, but genetics is definitely one that you're going to see on every single one. And then when you are finishing that undergrad degree and you know you want to try this out and see how it is the time to apply for a genetic counseling master's program. There's over 55 programs right now in the US, and that just kind of keeps growing. There's currently 4 in Canada, as well as programs in the UK and Australia, which is kind of cool if you wanted to get out of the States. And Australia is actually recognized by the American Board of Genetic Counseling. So you would be able to sit for the certification exam for America if you wanted to go to school there and come back, which I thought was fantastic. And I wish I would have known sooner. But anyway, so right now, I know it kind of seems like, I'm just in high school. What can I do right now? But this does sound interesting. Well, there are podcasts that you can listen to learn more information. So these podcasts I would highly recommend. They're all on Spotify. Gray Genetics also has patient stories. So you would be able to hear firsthand from people that have a genetic condition and how that affects them. NSGC.org is a fantastic resource. It is the National Society of Genetic Counselors, and they will actually have a list on their website of practicing genetic counselors that are open for student contact. So feel free to email them. They are extremely happy to talk to any and all students. So don't feel like, oh, this is kind of weird, I don't want to do this. They love when you email them. So don't feel awkward whatsoever. There's also the Wisconsin Genetic Association, which has more than 170 genetic counselors. On their website, which is listed at the bottom, wigca.org, they have additional resources and connecting with genetic counseling professionals. And then kind of a little bit about me and why I chose about genetic counseling. I first learned about genetics in high school, and I thought that I wanted to be this amazing researcher and go and do that. So when I went to college, I volunteered and worked in some undergraduate labs. And I realized that kind of working in a lab kind of by myself wasn't really what I wanted. I really enjoyed having different interactions with people and not kind of being alone. So when I was a junior in college, I actually attended a seminar that was about genetic counseling, and everything just kind of clicked for me. So science, biology, and helping people have always interested me, and I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. But I also knew that being a doctor was not the right fit for me at all. So this just kind of was like, all signs go for genetic counseling for me. And I love learning new things and concepts. I unfortunately get bored really easily, and genetics has been the only thing to really hold my interest because it's constantly changing. We're constantly getting new information, and I think it's fantastic. With research, I know things take a really long time to kind of get out there for it to actually start affecting people's life and being a benefit for them. But genetic counseling is what we can do now to help people. And that is something that really drew me into this field. So helping people become informed about their genetic risk, their genetic condition, and finding them access to resources is something that I really enjoy because it's something I can do to make sure that I have an impact and make sure that they are empowered to make all of the decisions for their healthcare themselves, but providing that education to get to that level of knowledge that they need to make those decisions. So it actually did take me a little while to get into a program. I will let you know the competition to get into a program is kind of fierce, but don't let that hold off whatsoever. I just kind of continued to make new experiences for myself. And I did get a job after college as a genetic counseling assistant, which really helped me see what the field was and what it entailed. And now that I have matched to the program at the medical college, I couldn't be happier with being with this program. Even though it is new, it is so fantastic. And the faculty are just wonderful. And the amount of experiences that I will be able to get and learn just kind of, it makes me really happy. And I'm looking forward to my future and being able to graduate and take those boards. And then that is kind of all that I have for you. So thank you for
Awesome.
listening.
Sarah, thank you so much. We have some great questions coming in and students and educators, just a reminder, if you do have questions for Sarah and genetic counseling, please put them in the chat box. But Giselle would like to know, are the genetic counselors responsible for finding affected DNA themselves, or are they responsible for communicating those findings to the actual patients?
Yeah, that is a great question. So, as a genetic counselor, we make sure that we are ordering and recommending the best test for the patient. The patient will then either provide a saliva or blood sample, and it'll actually be sent off to a lab where they'll go ahead and analyze it. So, while it's not us personally doing the DNA analysis, it is some really amazing people over at the lab that go ahead and do all that science behind it. And they'll go ahead and send us a report at the end saying if they are positive and what variants that they had found, or if they are negative. And then we would go ahead and explain to the patient what those results mean for them, and then provide recommendations for their care if necessary.
Sarah, when you say you send it to the lab, the people doing that work in the lab, are they a genetic counselor like you, just in the research or the lab area, or who are they?
That's actually wonderful. So it's a mix between different research technologists or even clinical technologists. There will people who go ahead and extract it. So it's basically scientists in a lab. And then there's a genomic analyst who will go ahead and shift through all of that data that's collected from the actual test. And then that'll kind of be synthesized into a report that we will go ahead and get. So you will have a MD, PhD who will sign off on all of those results. You'll have a medical technologist who will be doing the actual assays or the test. And then you will have genomic analysts who have anywhere from a master's to a PhD, going ahead and seeing what those different variants come up and analyzing if they are actually relevant for the patient or not. So
Wow.
it's a
So
great process.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot of opportunities. So,
Yeah.
someone like yourself that likes to work with people, and then
Mhm.
maybe the people in the lab are working more independently.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
like I heard you say, medical technologist is the one actually doing the assay or test.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, is that a degree in itself, a medical technologist?
I believe that is a specialized, you can go into a specialized program to be a medical technologist. They do have separate certifications, ensuring that you're competent. For lab testing, there's a lot of regulation that goes into it. So you'll have to make sure that you're certified under those regulation processes.
Super, thank
Mhm.
you. Angie would like to know what job positions post undergrad help gain experience that prepares one well and makes one a good candidate when applying for the master's program.
Oh, that is a fantastic question. Being a genetic counseling assistant, I would say, is a great opportunity. You're able to work in a genetics clinic and be able to see patients and see all of the ins and outs of a genetic counselor. But also, if you want to get into any type of research too, if that interests you, because we do have research genetic counselors, being a coordinator for clinical trials, if that interests you, also working in any type of nonprofit. One of the other people in my program, they worked for 211. So helping people get services within their community. Another one is a CNA who continues to do that. So pretty much anything where you're going to have to be communicating with people, but it's also specialized. So I would say getting a job at Barnes and Noble, maybe not the best idea, but something more in like the STEM areas or even the nonprofit sectors would be really helpful.
Yes, and I would just like to throw in there that I know we deal with a lot of the healthcare facilities and they are all looking for volunteers, and they have opened up now post COVID, or I don't want to say post COVID, but whatever, they're opening their
Mhm.
volunteer programs back up. So definitely students, if you're interested in just getting that first step into health sciences in general, you
Mhm.
cannot go wrong with volunteering. It will always look good on your resume and an application. So another question that we have is, what are helpful internships or volunteer opportunities that you recommend to help prepare this genetic counselor route in the near future? Currently exploring this career as an human biology undergrad. So I
Oh,
think we talked about it a
excellent.
little bit, but maybe you could
Mhm.
go into it for college students.
Yeah, for a college student, there's actually a bunch of different programs that will actually offer summer internships for undergrads who are interested in genetic counseling. Personally, I did a week internship with Northwestern University down in Chicago. I know South Carolina also offers one. Ooh, there's actually quite a few. If you look up genetic counseling programs and then search through them, usually on their website, they'll offer a type of internship or whatnot. MCW actually offers a internship as well. I believe that is in the summer. If you go onto their Instagram and follow them, it's MSGC MCW, I believe. They will go ahead and share stories as well as links for when that internship is open and that they are accepting applicants.
Wow, great information. Students, any other last questions for Sarah? I can insert a question or two, but I think we'd most like to hear from you. Let's see, just looking at our questions, our common questions from students. I know you're not there yet, but you've been an assistant. Can you tell us what a common day or an average day would look like for a genetic counselor?
Oh, absolutely. So, usually a typical day when they come in, so just kind of like doctors, they'll have patients on their schedule. In the clinic that I worked in, it was a pediatric clinic. So, it was an hour-long appointment every time. So, you would come in, you would go ahead and prep the patient. And by prepping the patient, you would look through their medical record as well as a referral. So you'd get the reason why they're seeing genetics, as well as a little bit of their medical background to see how long this issue has been occurring, or if there's been any other concerns that they have been looking into over time, or whatever other specialties they may have seen. So then you can see them as the whole picture. And then when your appointment arrives, you'll go ahead and go in. You'll go ahead and, discuss what they are hoping to learn at that appointment and what you can offer. We'll usually take a family history, which is that pedigree tool that I had told you about. So we will ask you information about both sides of your family, so your mom's side as well as your dad's side, and if there have been any major health issues that have gone through, or if you know of any condition. I know many people are affected by cystic fibrosis, even though it's more of a recessive condition. But when we go through a family history, we'll be able to pick up on some patterns that are occurring. And then we'll go ahead and discuss some information and teach you about genetics and what that'll mean to you, and any recommendations for a test or additional therapies or recommendations. Like if we see that there's been heart issues in your family, we'll probably recommend you to go see a cardiologist and get an echocardiogram, or like a picture of your heart and how it's functioning. Or we'll even recommend a genetic test. And then we'll go ahead and send you off to lab. And then we just kind of repeat that all day with all of our other patients. And it can include calling out test results, calling out different information. So if you call and you had a question for us, we would call you back and answer that question. So there is a lot of administrative work on the other side too for being a clinical genetic counselor, but you're also seeing patients all day as well. So it is busy, but I think it is a great amount of, you're here in the clinic, you're able to prepare all this stuff, and then you're over here able to sit down with the patient and really provide them support and education that they need.
Oh, great. Last question I'm going to take. Are patient care hours a requirement when applying for master's program, GC?
There's actually no requirement that genetic counseling programs require you to have, that I know. They do require you to have at least some significant time put into volunteering or advocacy work, so that they know that you can kind of handle tougher situations. I think that is probably the most beneficial thing that they look for out of that, but they don't have a particular hourly limit that you need. When you are in school, however, you do have to have a certain number of cases in order to sit for the boards, which your program will be able to give you through rotations. And that has never been a problem for any program that I know of, for once you are in the program, to be able to meet those hours.
Wow, such good information. So students and teachers, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Great questions. Sarah has put her email at the bottom of the screen if you do have questions for her. She also gave you some great resources. Hopefully you were able to catch those in the slides. And if you weren't, maybe you can email her and she can share those out again if you're looking for those. But Sarah, just thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck in your next couple of years. How long do you have yet?
So master's programs for this is only 2 years. So I'm actually just starting off in my first semester of my first year. So about a year and a half to go.
Good. So we will do
Mhm.
this again with you
Yes.
in, like I said, 3 years and see how the first year in the workforce went. So
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
thank you everyone for joining us, and we just appreciate you being here. We hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.